Welcome to Wisdom Activation, where we dive deep into the hidden truths of psychology, spirituality, and the soul's journey. Most YouTube videos about shadow work repeat the same basics. The shadow is your dark side. Do some journaling. Face your fears. But Carl Jung's vision of the shadow was far more profound, layered, and transformative. It wasn't just about managing negative emotions. It was about integrating repressed gifts, confronting collective darkness, and stepping onto the path of individuation. Today, we're going to explore 8 aspects of Jung's shadow work that you almost never hear about online. By the end, you'll see that shadow work is not just self-help. It's a spiritual, ethical, and even creative practice with the power to reshape your life and our world. So let's begin. The shadow isn't just negative. When most people hear the word shadow, they instantly think of darkness, anger, jealousy, shame, fears. And it's true, those are in there. But this is only half the story, and if you stop there, you miss the deeper mystery. Carl Jung stressed that the shadow is not simply a storage room for your so-called bad traits. It is a vault of everything that was pushed out of sight, not only the destructive, but also the divine. Here's the critical insight. The shadow hides qualities that were not acceptable in your family, school, or culture. They weren't bad, but they didn't fit. A child who shows natural leadership might be told, "Stop being bossy." They grow up afraid to claim authority, repressing their power of direction. A boy who shows tenderness and cries easily may be told, "Real men don't cry." He buries his empathy, the very gift that could make him a compassionate father, partner, or healer. A girl filled with questions might be told, "Don't be so nosy." And so her brilliant curiosity, which could have led to scientific discovery or spiritual insight, gets locked away. These parts don't disappear. They go underground into the shadow. Now here's the paradox. We spend years thinking the shadow is only our demons, when in truth it also contains our angels in exile, the gifts, strengths, and potentials that never had a chance to bloom. This is why Jung sometimes described the shadow as the seat of creativity. Many artists, writers, and innovators only find their voice once they stop running from the shadow and start mining its depths. But this isn't easy. Reclaiming these lost treasures requires self-honesty and courage, because even positive qualities, when repressed, return in twisted forms. Repressed leadership may surface as manipulation. Buried empathy may show up as self-sacrifice or codependency. Suppressed curiosity may morph into destructive restlessness or boredom. Shadow work, then, is not only about confronting the wounds we've tried to forget, it's about remembering the parts of ourselves we abandoned, stitching back into wholeness the qualities that once made us feel too bright, too soft, or too different. And here's the real treasure. The more you bring these gifts home, the more energy returns to your life. What was once locked in the unconscious comes back as vitality, creativity, and authentic power. So when you think of shadow work, don't just imagine wrestling with your darkness. Think of it as a sacred excavation, digging for the brilliance you once buried. The collective shadow. Most discussions about shadow work focus narrowly on the individual, our anger, envy, or shame. But Carl Jung warned us that shadow exists not only in personal psyches, but also in the collective. The shadow of the individual is a dark spot in the light of society. The shadow of society is a dark spot in the light of the individual. Jung described the collective shadow as the sum of all the unconscious tendencies, fears, and projections of a group. It's the dark underbelly of culture, the parts of a society it refuses to acknowledge. When unrecognized, these energies manifest externally, often violently. Consider history. The witch hunts of Europe and colonial America weren't merely superstition or cruelty. Jung observed that societies project disowned traits onto scapegoats. Women accused of witchcraft often represented the feared or repressed aspects of femininity: sexual power, intuition, independence. In other words, the collective shadow of patriarchy found its target. Totalitarian movements similarly thrive on projection. Aggression, hatred, and fear that individuals cannot consciously own are redirected toward a group enemy. Hitler's rise, for example, relied on a society willing to project blame onto Jews, communists, and other marginalized groups, the unintegrated aspects of a nation made manifest. And it's not only historical. The collective shadow appears in today's online mob mentality, social media outrage, and political polarization. Entire communities, unexamined and unintegrated, project fears and insecurities onto the other, fueling cycles of judgment, blame, and even violence. Jung once noted, "Whatever is rejected from the individual, that is projected into the world. It is the world's reflection of our own shadow." Shadow work, therefore, is not only personal, it is cultural and ethical. By confronting our personal darkness, aggression, envy, prejudice, fear, we reduce the need for projection onto others. Healing our individual shadow has ripple effects. It softens the collective shadow, breaking destructive cycles in families, communities, and even nations. Ultimately, the collective shadow teaches a profound lesson. Integration of the personal shadow is a moral and spiritual act. Every time we own our hidden aggression or acknowledge our unexamined fears, we are not just growing individually, we are participating in the transformation of the collective. Archetypal Shadow Jung taught that the shadow is not only personal, it is archetypal, woven into myths, religions, and collective symbols. Archetypes are like riverbeds which shape the flow of the unconscious, he said. The shadow archetype embodies the unacknowledged, universal patterns of human fear, aggression, and desire that appear across cultures and history. Think of the trickster, the demon, or the dark god in mythologies. These figures are not simply evil. They are symbolic expressions of humanity's disowned drives, chaos, rebellion, and instinctual energy. Every culture projects its own shadow into archetypal forms, externalizing what it cannot consciously hold. Archetypal shadows often appear in dreams, literature, and art. A dragon hoarding treasure, a shadowy mentor, or a monstrous figure in a story is more than fantasy. It is a mirror of unconscious forces. Jung explained, "Mythology is psychology, misread as reality. By studying these archetypes, we learn how our personal shadows are echoes of universal patterns. Engaging with the archetypal shadow allows us to recognize the collective themes influencing our personal shadow. For example, someone struggling with suppressed anger may find resonance with myths of gods or heroes who embody rage, not to emulate them blindly, but to understand the energy within themselves. Shadow integration at the archetypal level is transformative. By encountering these universal forces, we reclaim power, creativity, and wisdom that were buried beneath cultural, familial, and personal repression. What once felt chaotic or dangerous can be harnessed as a source of guidance, courage, and insight. The shadow in dreams. Dreams are the royal road to the unconscious, and for Jung, they were one of the most powerful tools for encountering the shadow. The dream is the small hidden door in the deepest and most intimate sanctum of the soul, he said, emphasizing that nightly visions are direct messages from the unconscious, guiding us towards self-understanding. The shadow often appears in dreams as figures of the same sex, as threatening strangers, or as grotesque, exaggerated versions of ourselves. A shadow figure might take the form of a monster, a rival, or even a beloved person behaving strangely, each representing disowned aspects of the dreamer. Symbols are the language of dreams. A dragon or monster may embody repressed anger, a shadowy competitor may reveal hidden ambition, and a collapsing building might symbolize suppressed fear of failure or instability. Dreams speak metaphorically, bypassing rational defenses and communicating what the conscious mind cannot face. Many people dismiss dreams as random or meaningless, but Jung saw them as nightly invitations to dialogue with the unconscious. Shadow work in dreams involves noticing recurring patterns, recording vivid images, and reflecting on emotional reactions. Techniques such as dream journaling, active imagination, or guided meditation on dream symbols allow the dreamer to uncover hidden traits and integrate them consciously. Shadow in dreams is often messy and paradoxical. A figure may be terrifying yet hold a gift, a situation may induce fear yet reveal insight. Jung advised, "The dream shows the way to the individuation of the personality." In other words, facing and integrating the shadow revealed in dreams is essential for personal growth, self-realization, and spiritual maturity. By attending to dreams consistently, we learn to decode the unconscious, reclaim repressed qualities, and receive guidance for waking life. Dreams are not just nighttime entertainment, they are soul-level messages, urging us to confront, understand, and integrate the hidden parts of ourselves. Shadow work as a step toward individuation. Many people mistakenly view shadow work as the end goal, as if integrating disowned traits is enough to reach healing or enlightenment. Jung was clear. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Shadow integration is only the first step in the lifelong journey of individuation. Once the shadow is acknowledged and integrated, the psyche begins to encounter deeper archetypal figures, the anima or animus, the inner feminine in men, or the inner masculine in women, representing the balance of polarities within the self. The self, the unifying center of consciousness and unconscious, the guiding principle of wholeness and spiritual alignment. Shadow work clears the path for these encounters. By facing and reclaiming disowned aspects of ourselves, we are better prepared to engage with these profound inner energies, to understand their guidance, and to avoid projecting them onto the external world. Individuation is not a linear process, nor is it a destination easily reached. It is the lifelong integration of all layers of the psyche, shadow, anima animus, and ultimately, the self. Jung emphasized, individuation does not shut one out from the world, but gathers all into a new, more integrated perspective. Shadow work, therefore, is not merely about healing wounds or resolving conflicts. It is the gateway to profound spiritual evolution, creativity, authenticity, and the emergence of your truest self. The darkness, once embraced, illuminates the path to wholeness. The shadow and creativity. Jung observed that human creativity often springs directly from the shadow. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious, he wrote. And this applies not only to personal growth, but also to the creative impulse. Repressed or disowned aspects of ourselves, once consciously acknowledged, often find expression in symbolic, transformative ways. Art, literature, music, and invention frequently arise from the tension between conscious awareness and hidden, shadow material. Consider some historical examples. Dostoevsky transformed his psychological torment and inner conflicts into literary masterpieces exploring the depths of human nature. Vincent van Gogh channeled emotional suffering into paintings that radiate raw beauty and enduring resonance. Jung himself, in his Red Book, engaged directly with his inner visions, dialogues, and shadow figures, producing a profoundly symbolic and creative work. Shadow work, therefore, is not merely about integration or healing. It is a liberation of creative energy. By confronting the parts of ourselves we've hidden, rejected, or denied, we unlock the artist, innovator, and visionary within. Every unexpressed emotion, every suppressed impulse, and every hidden desire is potential energy. By facing the shadow, we allow this energy to flow into creation, giving shape to beauty, insight, and inspiration that resonates far beyond the personal psyche. Ultimately, engaging the shadow creatively is both transformative and transcendent. It connects personal exploration with universal expression, turning inner darkness into works that illuminate, provoke, and inspire. The ethical and moral dimension. Jung emphasized that shadow work is not only personal, it is an ethical imperative. The more you make the unconscious conscious, the more you are freed from being a mere instrument of fate, he wrote. Failing to acknowledge your own shadow doesn't just affect your inner life, it projects unrecognized impulses onto the world, often in destructive ways. When unintegrated shadows go unexamined, they manifest collectively. Wars, social injustice, systemic oppression, racism, and violence are not merely external problems. They are eruptions of disowned qualities projected onto others. By refusing to confront our darkness, we unconsciously contribute to the suffering and chaos in society. Shadow work, then, carries a profound moral and social responsibility. To face your shadow is to serve humanity. Every emotion owned, every impulse integrated, reduces the unconscious destruction we project into the world. Your inner work reverberates outward. The ethical dimension of shadow integration is also spiritual. By reclaiming disowned aggression, jealousy, fear, or prejudice, you cultivate compassion, discernment, and clarity. You become a living example of conscious engagement, able to influence others through presence rather than projection. Ultimately, shadow work is both personal and planetary. Integrating your darkness is not only a path to self-mastery, it is an act of service to the world. Jung reminds us, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. The more we illuminate our inner shadows, the more we lighten the collective burden, contributing to a more conscious and ethical society. Reflection. So let's recap. The shadow isn't just negative. It holds hidden gifts and untapped potential. It's not only personal, it is collective, archetypal, and ethical. It communicates through dreams, hides through projection, fuels creativity, and serves as the gateway to individuation. This is the deeper, richer side of Jung's shadow work, the side rarely explored on YouTube. Now, I ask you, which of these 8 aspects surprised you the most? Which one do you feel called to explore in your own life? Share your reflections in the comments. Your insights may guide someone else on their journey towards self-awareness and spiritual growth. If this video opened new doors for you, subscribe to Wisdom Activation for more teachings on psychology, spirituality, and the hidden pathways of the soul. Remember, the shadow you avoid doesn't disappear. It shapes your life until you meet it with awareness. When you face it, you don't just heal, you become whole.